Picture this. You're 5 years old, sitting cross-legged on the carpet that your mom has just finished cleaning with a vacuum that still uses bags. You look at the TV, and there are 3 grown adults singing into black plumbing pipes like it's a typical Tuesday. Before you can even process whatever avant-garde plumbing music is happening on your television, the camera cuts to a bunch of bouncing toddlers. 3 folk singers in aggressive 1980s sweaters, and a giant bipedal pachyderm. But here's the kicker. The animal refuses to speak. It only communicates its innermost thoughts and fears through the aggressive off-camera blasts of a brass tuba. And then, everyone just starts singing about a Jamaican donkey. The show opened with a cartoon elephant walking across a spiderweb, just casually strolling across a web, like that was a normal commute. And then it sang a song about how it was having such a good time that it invited more elephants to come walk on the spiderweb too. Which structurally is a terrible idea, but hold that thought, because you probably think it was just another cheap plastic distraction meant to keep you quiet while your mom made bagel bites. But the reality behind this fever dream hides a 100-year-old Broadway secret, and an accidental television empire, and a piece of pure, uncorrupted psychology that your adult brain is desperately craving right now. In 1978, 3 folk musicians in Toronto had an idea that was either brilliant or financially reckless. Sharon Hampson, Lois Lillianstein, and Bram Morrison had each been performing solo coffee houses, school gymnasiums, folk festivals, the kind of career where exposure is the main form of payment. They met through a program called Mariposa in the schools, which sounds less like a place to pitch a TV show and more like a place where you learn to churn your own butter. Sharon was a Toronto-born folk singer who'd been playing coffee houses since she was 17. Bram had spent 4 years as an apprentice to the legendary Canadian folklorist Alan Mills, touring the country learning folk songs, the way a blacksmith learns to forge steel, by doing it 1,000 times until it's muscle memory. And Lois? Lois was a classically trained pianist from Chicago who'd studied at the University of Michigan, moved to Toronto when her husband got a professorship at York University, and then just wandered into the folk scene because she couldn't sit still. She was also the funniest one in the group by a country mile, but we'll get to that. After rewatching a bunch of these episodes, I realized that Lois has to be the base of Kristen Wiig's character, the Target Lady. It just has to be. Here's the insane part. They had never performed together before they decided to make an album. Most bands practice in a garage for 2 years before they even think about recording. These 3 did it backwards. They made the record first and figured out how to sing together during the sessions. Bram literally said in an interview that they learned how to harmonize while the tape was rolling. Sharon was the only one who had ever sung harmony before. She said it used to drive her crazy. They borrowed $22,000 from friends and family, people who, by Bram's own admission, thought they were giving charity. They needed a visual gimmick for their live concerts. So, what did they do? Did they hire Jim Henson? Did they spend millions in R&D? No, they literally just borrowed a leftover costume from a local modern dance theater production of the French story Babar, which explains why the suit always looked like it had seen some things. They formed their own label called Elephant Records. They decided to go all in with the elephant thing and released One Elephant, Deux Éléphants, a bilingual folk album for children that became the fastest selling kids record in Canadian history. They paid everyone back by Christmas. The album went triple platinum. They got their first Juno nomination. And remember, they still barely knew each other. By 1984, after winning multiple Juno Awards, performing at Lincoln Center, and doing concerts with symphony orchestras, because apparently that's what you do when your career goes sideways in the best possible way, they developed a TV show with Cambium Productions for CBC. They called it The Elephant Show. And the opening credits featured an animated elephant walking across a spider's web while the song One Elephant played. That image would get burned into the brains of an entire generation. But here's the thing I need you to hold on to, because we're coming back to this later. The show wasn't designed to teach, it was designed to include. And that is not the same thing. And the pacing, it was relentless. You'd get a loose plot about the gang building a tree fort or surviving a power outage, and suddenly it would just violently smash cut to a live concert segment in a mosh pit of toddlers and screaming fans. Here's where I need to reframe something for you. Because most people remember The Elephant Show as a kids' music show. 3 adults sing songs, an elephant dances, Everyone does the Skinnamarink hand motions at the end. Fun, simple, wholesome, next. Wrong. The Elephant Show was a concert disguised as a TV show. Every episode had an actual live performance segment where Sharon, Lois, and Bram played with a real backing band called the Mammoth Band, professional Toronto jazz and folk musicians, and they played real arrangements: jazz, calypso, rock and roll, Broadway, country. These weren't simplified kiddie versions of music genres. These were the genres performed by musicians who could have been playing clubs, choosing instead to play for 4-year-olds. And the 4-year-olds had no idea they were getting a music education. They just thought it was fun. That was the system. The show never announced what it was doing. It never said, "Today we're learning about jazz." It just played jazz. It let kids absorb musical sophistication the way you absorb a language, by hearing it used naturally, in context, by people who love it. Producer Bill Usher specifically pushed for this approach. He wanted to get away from the traditional folk-only sound of children's music and pull in every style he could find, and the trio's eclectic taste made that possible. All performed in wildly different styles, sometimes within the same episode. And then there was Elephant. Let's talk about Elephant. Paula Gallivan was inside that costume for all 65 episodes. She also choreographed the concert segments. She was, by every functional definition, a lead performer on this show. She was credited as a guest star for most of the run. Eric Nagler, the sidekick who appeared in literally every episode, was also credited as a guest star. The Mammoth Band members weren't individually credited at all. Sharon's husband, Joe Hampson, was the musical director. Their daughter, Randy, was a production assistant. Eric's son, Christopher, appeared as one of the kids. This was a family operation running at a professional level, and nobody outside the production knew that. But back to Elephant herself. The decision to have her communicate through a tuba, played by Scott Irvine, was genius, and I don't use that word casually. Think about it. A character who never speaks but whose emotions are perfectly clear through musical tone, you always knew what Elephant was feeling. Happy, nervous, mischievous, hurt. And you knew it, not because someone told you. You knew it because you heard it. The show was literally teaching kids emotional literacy through music without ever once framing it as a lesson. Now here's the thing I teased earlier. The show wasn't designed to teach, it was designed to include. Every episode was structured around the idea that everyone belongs. The kids on the show weren't performers reciting lines. They were kids, hanging out with adults who treated them like people. No one talked down, no one simplified. Sharon, Lois, and Bram spoke to children the way you'd speak to a friend who just happens to be shorter than you. Bram said it himself in a People interview. Their secret was being on the floor, nose to nose with children. Not above them, with them. And Skinnamarink. We need to talk about Skinnamarink. That song, the one you're doing the hand motions to right now, was written in 1910. 1910. It was originally called Skiddy-Marinkadoo, and it was a show tune from a Broadway musical called The Echo. And the original lyrics, contrary to popular belief, were not about leaving skid marks in your marinky dinks. The original version was about a crocodile serenading a sea nymph on a fictional island. That is not a joke. Lois learned it from her cousin's daughter, who'd picked it up at summer camp in Chicago. None of them knew where it came from. They just thought it was a nice song, stuck it on the first album almost as an afterthought, and then proceeded to sing it at the end of every single episode, every single concert, every single public appearance for the next 4 decades. A 116-year-old song about a crocodile in love became the most recognizable sign-off in children's television history. The universe is unserious. In 1993, 5 years after the show stopped producing new episodes, TV Guide assembled a panel of experts to rank the best children's programs. The Elephant Show came in at number 2. Sesame Street was number 5, Barney was number 9. A show that had been in reruns for half a decade was still outranking the most famous children's show ever made. By the time it left Nickelodeon's lineup, it had reached over 100 million viewers across a dozen countries. And it was made on a Canadian public broadcaster's budget, with borrowed money by 3 people who learned to harmonize in the studio. Here's what I can't stop thinking about. We live in an era of children's content that is optimized. Every frame is tested. Every color is algorithmically chosen. Every song is engineered for maximum engagement and minimum attention span. And it works. Kids watch it. The numbers go up. Everyone is satisfied except for the part of you that remembers what it felt like when the content wasn't optimized, when it was just honest. Sharon, Lois, and Bram weren't algorithms. They were 3 folk musicians who believed, stubbornly and completely, that children deserve the same quality of music that adults got. Not dumbed down, not sped up, not auto-tuned. Real instruments, real harmonies, real genres performed by real people who clearly, obviously, undeniably loved what they were doing. And you could feel it. Even at 3 years old, you could feel the difference between someone performing for you and someone inviting you in. That's what the show was. An invitation. Come walk on this spider's web with us. It's going to be fun. And when it's over, we're all going to do the arm motions together and sing a song that a crocodile wrote for a mermaid in 1910. And it's going to mean, I love you, and we're all going to mean it. Lois Lilienstein died in 2015. She was 78. Cancer. Bram had hearing loss that threatened his career. Sharon is a 3-time breast cancer survivor. They were all inducted into the Order of Canada. They performed at the White House for the Clintons. They had a playground named after them in Toronto, and 2,000 people showed up for the dedication. These are folk singers from coffee shops who borrowed 22 grand and made a record they thought would be a one-time thing. And maybe that's the part that gets me. They didn't plan this. They didn't have a strategy. They just believe that if you treat children like full human beings and give them music that doesn't apologize for being good, they'll show up. And 100 million of us did. So the next time you catch yourself humming Skinnamarink, and you will, probably tonight, because I've planted it in your head, and I'm not sorry, remember that you're singing a song that's older than your grandparents, performed by 3 strangers who met in a school hallway, funded by people who thought they were throwing their money away, and carried across decades by a generation of kids who couldn't explain why they loved it but never, ever forgot it. That's not nostalgia. That's proof that the thing worked. If this unlocked a memory you completely forgot you had, do me a favor and hit the like button and the ring bell so the algorithm knows that we're out here doing the Lord's work. And in the comments, leave me a show that you'd like me to cover next. I'll be reading every single one. See you next time.